let the world know that we're on, and we're going to have a conversation tonight in BBT Studios. It's been 2 days. We haven't had a video. We have been gone. We've been in Chicago doing some business stuff. Whoa, we're getting blown out here with the ISO with the camera. Why it's freaking out here. Let's bring that down a little splashy here. There we go. It's trying to do an auto ISO here, white balance. Let's see if we can get the that down some. It's gonna oscillate unless I turn that auto off. See if that fixes it. It might be trying to adjust to the. I'm gonna bring this camera. There we go, my dudes. Dark mode. Lit. So we're going to talk about the Ethereum call today. There was an Ethereum development call. It's Fridays. Fridays are typical Ethereum development calls. Hopefully the audio is okay. We're not using a traditional mic right now. It's actually, you would laugh at the setup that you see here right now. We're in the BBT studios. The studio's still getting some setup here. Hopefully after I get back from vacation, we'll be ready to finally move the rest of the stuff into the studio, and we can have a proper studio setup here. I'm gonna try to get you guys set up here. You guys can kind of see the BBT logo and stuff here. So yeah, for the folks that are just joining, we're gonna cover, I'm gonna flip over to a screen where we can read through essentially a kind of annotated outline of what the Ethereum developers covered today. I had to speed through kind of their call to try to understand some of the results that came back from the testnet that they had just done with the merge, and then some of the bugs that they found and how they're kind of going about it. What that allows us to do is understand more with what's remaining with the Ethereum merge, and then what what's the realistic timeline if they are able to fix some of those bugs, have a couple good tests, and then that will give us a better idea of when the actual merge will occur. At least it'll give us a better idea, I should say, of when they could try to solicit the folks for that. Gotta set this white balance, bros. It keeps I think having that behind me, the light is just messing with the camera's auto white balance. But we need to try to get to a place where we all feel an understanding that when the merge is going to occur, and then we can plan appropriately. Right now, with testnet the way it was, I'm not 100% confident that they're going to be able to hit their June date, and we're going to go through why. Which we've all kind of anticipated because of some of the stuff that I had in the last video, where explaining the development process and what happens once you have a couple good tests, and then they can kind of freeze that baseline. Once that baseline is frozen, then they'll go through, technically, all intents and purposes, their baseline is frozen, and that's why they're doing this test, but they found bugs. So now that means they're going to go back to the drawing board on certain things, and they're going to have to go back and do this all over again, this merge test again, and see if they have things fixed. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up Tim Binko's details, and then let's switch over real quick and kind of go through that. So let's go over to this, which allows me to get this screen up for you guys. And now this is what we're going to be going through. So this is on Twitter, and what happens is if you're not following Tim on Twitter, give him a follow. He's got 51,000 followers. He is the all-core dev, essentially Scrum Master, which means that he's just kind of the coordinator and making sure that things are moving along with the development. and organizing, keeping the agenda, recording the event, and then kind of giving everybody an annotated outline of what the events that occurred on the meeting. So we're going to go through some of this, and what I'm going to do is kind of decipher for folks that are not developers, what's it mean and what's some of the impacts and risks that they have, and where's the confidence come moving forward that they're actually going to get this thing with proof of stake done. So the agenda essentially from the all core devs, the ACD is the all core devs meeting, was this AM. They covered the latest Kiln, I think it's Kiln, KILN, testnet, the Beacon chain withdrawals. So they're working on how Beacon chain is going to be able to withdraw. So if you have things on Beacon, how are you eventually going to be able to unstake and then be able to get your rewards and your money, because that isn't a thing yet. Now we're a couple of years into it, and you cannot withdraw your coins. So and then, or we're at least 1 year into it, 1 full year with some change. I think it's March. It came out in the end of November, beginning of December, right, of 2020, into 2020, into 2021 is when everybody locked up their coins. A lot of people did, and they've effectively been frozen on Beacon chain to be able to withdraw. So they're working on that. It's the second EIP, and then this EIP 4844, which I think is the blob one, and then some future core EIPs. EIPs is Ethereum Improvement Plan. So this is essentially their kind of agenda that they were going through today. On that, this particular person gave an overview of that testnet launch, and then how the proof of work chain went live last Wednesday. What they mean by that is to do the testnet, they have to kind of spin up essentially a GPU mined proof of work chain that's replicant of what's on mainnet, relatively speaking. So there's not it's not a full clone of from my understanding, it's not a full clone, and I could be wrong on that, of the Ethereum primary chain. And then you have Beacon chain, and then there's a merge event, right? So there's code that's going to be set to make sure that the merge can occur. So that person went through that, and then we have they were hoping to have that merge midweek this week, but there was an unexpected increase in hash rate on the network, which means that when they target a time, the way the blockchains work, right? Ethereum's blocks for 15 seconds. There's 4 of them in a minute if everything's working right. And you can anticipate going forward, like if you say, hey, 2 weeks from now, we want you to have your code ready and you're going to go do this. So what they do is they figure out from 2 weeks from whenever they're deciding what block number should they be at, right? And then you got difficulty adjusting and all that kind of thing. So what happens is if somebody throws a whole bunch of hash rate on there and starts finding blocks faster, and it kind of speeds up the hash rate, and blocks get solved a little faster. Sometimes you can have things happen faster than they should. It should auto balance with its difficulty, but there's events that when they're trying to do testing in kind of a controlled environment, it's in a uncontrolled environment like a decentralized blockchain, it's kind of interesting. So this is a situation where they were able to test another feature with regards to this set new terminal difficulty value, which is just an ability to kind of set the baseline for them to all kind of work around and not have to worry about some miners coming on and off the network. It's cool to I guess get some of this kind of stuff done. The realities are, I'm trying to put the developer hat side of me on that. It's hard to operate given the situation in a public domain where you can't control all the variables if you're trying to test it, and if you're just trying to get your particular piece of code to work. So they kind of set the stage of the difficulty. Now this is not going to be a thing when they go to actually do the merge. They're not going to be able to set that terminal difficulty, because difficulty is predicated on how much hash rate's there, agnostic to the fact of the difficult bomb, which then artificially pumps the difficulty up, which was our quote unquote poison pill for the miners to be able to wean them off of the proof of work chain at some point. That's why they keep kicking the difficult bomb down the road. So technically, I guess this terminal difficulty value could be kind of like a difficult bomb type of thing. But um, bottom line, they were able to do the merge. At a later time that was live, people could see the merge occur. They did a live stream on the test net to show what code has been submitted and the clients and how they were going to handle the fact that ETH merged. Now, in a previous video, I kind of covered like how mechanically the merge is working between the two different networks. We could do a deeper dive. I want to do a deeper dive. I would like to have one of the the known Ethereum developers on there when we're going through that together on the whiteboard. So we'll try to get that for everybody. I'll coordinate with Tim or one of these other folks to see if they'll come on and we can explain people mechanically what's going to happen. But bottom line, the merge on the testnet occurred. However, they've had some issues. So this is what Tim's getting into here, saying that being said, the merge, we saw some issues across several clients. While these did not prevent the network from finalizing, it continued to move along, and it did span several components from block production to syncing to block explorers. What that means is that they had an issue with some finalization. So the thing it didn't go off perfectly, and there's bugs and there's issues related to it, but they were able to get some information to make sure certain things happened appropriately. I kind of akin this to like a SpaceX launch that blows up. They get it off the pad, they get some telemetry, some things are working, and then it explodes. So they're like, well, it wasn't a complete failure. We were able to get some data. So that's essentially where they're at from a development standpoint without all the melodrama, right? But it's just, it didn't, you want this kind of thing. This Ethereum's financial structure and the way everything is and $500 billion network is like a rocket that has people on it, right? So you wanted to get it all the way to space. I'm trying to use it as good as an analogy as I can, but this is what we're talking about. This is some people's livelihoods, money is on the Ethereum network. They're very vested into it. So something like this merge is at that level because it could financially ruin folks if it breaks, like really, really breaks. Like if they do this merge and they haven't figured out something and then something tragically happens, it could really hurt things. So this is where they have to take some baby steps to make sure things are good. So if we pull this down a little further, they start to explain kind of what's going on here. When they dug through the specific issues of the network, they were able to find, there's a piece here that I want to highlight specifically. One of the here's their postmortem. So the postmortem is kind of the breakdown on the different issues here. We can bring this up, open in a new window. What the issue is: shortly after the difficulty was reached, the Prism node had proposed a bad block. It gave it the following error, which it couldn't execute. The impact shows that no beacon block came out of the validators that was ran by these particular clients. The blocks were missing for about 20% of the blocks. There was no impact on assertion participation, although valid blocks were more full to account for more assertions from the missing blocks. So bottom line, like this is a showstopper of moving. Like they can't, like if people are like, well, is there enough done to do the merge in June? If they didn't, they have to go back and fix this, right? So this was what you would call a showstopper until they can get this fixed and make a proposal, and then how they're going to fix it. And then they have kind of, with any of this stuff, you have the good, the bad, the ugly. So this is kind of a good, bad, ugly, where this is the bad, and then the ugly is that the state's probably going to move. The good is that they got a lot of data from it, and this is what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to go through several iterations of this to fix and retest. And Tim talks to this in here about how they're going to try to retest and add some additional, hardware to identify issues faster. There was some lagging in that stream showing some of their telemetry that they were getting back from the feedback on that was a little laggy. So optimizing some of that information set will help the developers break it down a little easier. One key part that I have here, this is the first real kind of time that I've seen Tim reach out and say, increased testing is at the top of everybody's priority. They're full tilt trying to get this thing done, right? Does that mean from a date standpoint, we scroll down here, I don't think he really puts there. They were talking about slipping it, that it'll slip until it's fixed type of thing. But the bottom line, let me go down here. Yeah, this gets down to just withdrawals. One final concern, which we didn't solve to keep discussing, how to let applications know that the merge is complete. This is the other piece that I know that is, this is this is an open gap, right? So you have the issue that we just talked about, and then you have this issue here, which is, they didn't solve, and we'll keep discussing on how to let applications know the merge is complete. Like, this is the part, like you have the mechanical part of the merge where Beacon takes over the consensus layer and block propagation and payment to block producers, which then would be processing the burnt fee, the remaining, whatever's remaining left of the fees that are burned. So the extra little bit plus their each block owner gets their natural payout that all blocks get for participating in proof of stake. But the person that's selected to produce the block, there's a financial incentive now there because they'll be handling the block production. So if you are selected proof of stake node and it is your turn to essentially create that block, you are paid in those fees that we are paid right now as the miners, right? So it switches over to Beacon. That's part of the whole merge. Mining goes away, those proof of stake folks. So there's a huge financial incentive for proof of stake, right? It's moving over that extra revenue over to proof of stake. So this is why anybody that has a proof of stake node is kind of biting at the bit that, not only will they earn their micro amount of inflation from those fees that are paid out to every block producer, all the block producers is a good word for it, all the validators are paid a very small increment. They're also, if they're selected within that epoch, which is just a time frame, and then it's their turn to mint, they would then get the MEV and all the other stuff, right? So there's a huge financial incentive for them to do that. Everything I just talked about is the functional thing of the merge and the way the cryptocurrency blockchain is functional. Then you have all of the development that sits on top, which is the smart contracts and applications that run and use Ethereum, and is using the Ethereum as the transaction layer to do the business rules and the things that are within the smart contract. That issue right now is what we're looking at right here, is where application owners still don't have some mechanism to know when the merge is complete. Like they're still discussing it. Like, this is what I was talking about when I say that, is the code frozen? Is all of the kind of features completed? Are they done with everything? And then they kind of freeze it. Then they go through this test phase, which is effectively what that test net is that they're using, is going through and doing those test phases. So they're a lot further along. But from a date standpoint, are people expecting June? I mean, right now, because of the way that it's not through that they don't want to, it's the facts of the matter that they're going to have to get through some seriously positive tests. And if their ops tempo is to where they can reset and redo this every couple weeks, could they get to June? I think they could get to a place in May to feel that they're comfortable with June, but then they got to convince the community that it's really, really, really done. On top of, I haven't seen a fix, and the Ethereum developers are more than welcome to post something below for the Cornell critical fines out there related to, there's two, like I would consider Cat 1 issues out there from being able to mint additional blocks kind of out of thin air with a descending stake. Like that's an issue that needs to be fixed. I haven't seen anybody comment on that being fixed. So that was produced on March 2nd. So we're March 18th now on this video. Unless something happened within the last 16 days related to that, that's a pretty strong showstopper too. So again, folks that are looking, are they able to mine a little longer? What's remaining? This is what I'm talking about from here. This is our best insight to where things are at, and then monitoring, how their progress is on Ethereum. If I was a betting person, I'm still thinking this is going to be at a best minimum December, just from what I'm looking at mechanically. Again, I'm not involved in any development from there. I just have been in the space for a while, and I come from running large development teams and understanding to align all those expectations from people, that even if the developers are done and they feel comfortable with it, that there's still going to be some serious convincing from the application owners and the users of Ethereum that if it's really ready, because it is also, they're tied to the hip on this, right? This is the infrastructure layer. And if it breaks and blocks stop producing, or finalization stops, and they have no like revert plan, you can't have Ethereum pulling like a Solana and having to reboot the network. That's one of the pains with this kind of thing. I have all kinds of opinions of what they could do. Like a lot of people, mechanically. Back in 2017, they could have just spun ETH 2.0 as a completely separate network and didn't have a merge, and just had two of them running simultaneously, and then tried to incentivize development to be on the proof of stake side. We'll see if it ends up having a change of heart at some point, where they just are like, the risk is not worth the reward to have the merger of the two networks, and that they just have two separate networks. And if you're a builder and a developer, you just start building on the other side. That's, I'm looking at large applications, and that's one way sometimes large applications work, is you essentially you don't sunset it. I mean, you can sunset it, but sometimes you have two versions running, and eventually enough people get enough development on the other side, because it makes sense for people, but you still have the original, right? So then you have both networks, and if the value starts moving over to that other network, then the other network will collapse naturally, if that's a way to do it, right? And then you would have all this trying to create this weird plinko wheel. Where's the next bug going to come at, right? You think you got everything sorted, but you have 80 items at the bottom that you don't know, and that little plinko ball can go down and open up something you didn't realize is there. So we'll see. I'm kind of pontificating now, but let's look at some of your guys' questions. I'm going to switch back real quick. But to give you guys an idea, what's up? Here we go. So I'm trying to not be a Debbie Downer for this team. Man, my white balance on this sucks. I'm trying to use the higher quality camera here, but Fully Electric says, BitsBeTrippin, they don't care about miners and want to push out no matter what the cost. It's going to happen. Well, I hear you. But it's one of those things where they just can't go do that, because they could sack the entire network if they did that. And it's not worth is the risk worth that reward? Not really. So it's the reality is I would see them splitting the network before they would sack it. I think it's all going to come back down. Mind you, most of these developers, they have a lot of staked interest in this too. So I think if those discussions haven't been made public yet, they got to be in the background of like maybe we just have we incentivize people to start developing on ETH, you know, 2.0, and just start building things on there, and get withdrawals running, and then naturally you'll have this gravitation over there from the builders, supposedly, right? um, that's already started happening with like where some of these developers have left Ethereum and went over to Solana or went over to Avalanche. um, it's not, I think, out of the question that why they wouldn't do that either. um, or they fix some of these bugs. It's just there's a huge amount of what in the tech world we would call technical debt related to this merge. I mean, it's going to be connected in at the hip with ETH 1 until they cut everything over to ETH 2. So this is just the consensus layer. This is part of the issue, is where a lot of the smart contract and all that content is still going to be on Ethereum 1's chain, the canonical Ethereum 1 chain, and it's going to inherit the consensus from this other chain, but it's going to be producing those blocks on ETH 1. Just it's going to get its consensus, and it's going to be uh, the blocks actually, I think, a stop on ETH 1. It's still going to have all that history on Ethereum 1, so they're kind of transitioning it, right? Um, and that's what they're working towards, and they're going to continue to work towards it. It's just how many holes are there that we're going to find, and what's the risk there associated to it. The media is pushing POS, so that's one thing to keep pressing forward. Well, I think that there's a huge push right now from this ESG standpoint of looking at the energy use related to proof of work, um, and the um, I would say that some of that's kind of baked interest, and some of it's not fully understood, of like the green source of power that some of these operations use. I mean, there's a lot of very green energy when you look at Hut 8, which is a very large Ethereum miner. All of their power is renewable, right? So if you're talking, some of the largest Ethereum miners are using 100% renewable power. It would be interesting to see, that energy mix and then that narrative there. So is it that you don't want any power usage, or do you want just green power? Because I've heard it as much as the energy use in general, and people have a problem with that. And that's just ridiculous, right? Like the energy is a part and parcel of life. Like it's part of being an evolved species, is to leverage, the tech stack. To do it in an efficient way, I think, is what everybody's intentions are. Nobody wants to see, uh, large, burning of oil or something to create energy, right? I think everybody has a common sense approach to, can we get this cheap, efficient, and energy, carbon neutral. I think that's a healthy thing to do anyways. It's like recycling. I mean, there's a lot of positives to be better for the environment. I don't think, I mean, we live on this planet. I think that's a good um, approach to do things. That being said, there's some people that go as far as like they just don't like the energy use. It's 99% reduction of energy use. That's not necessarily, that's a bad thing in some ways, with regards to these energy providers rely on a consistent power use. They build to that, and then if you start contracting that, then your power grids in general aren't as resilient. We saw that in Texas with the storms, right? And then things went down there, and then you had Bitcoin miners powering down and providing some of their own power that they had built for the purpose of Bitcoin mining, with like gas flare off. and re-providing back to the grid that extra power, right? So there's a lot of give and take in this system here, and I think it's just people being educated and understanding that difference. Dan Jenkins dropping $40 like a boss. Have you bought your tickets for the Raven Coin cruise yet? I didn't know it went live yet. I know Miss BBT has been talking about it, but yes, we will be getting it. I'm actually going on one next week. I'm taking a family trip and kind of taking a break. It's been go 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 to get BBT East set up with you guys and getting the studio set up. So we're going to take a quick breakout next week, and then right back on the grind. We have our containers for our Bitcoin mining coming in and getting that hooked up. And I'm going to take you guys through all that. We have the studio be built next week, and then yeah, Ravencoin Cruise in the fall. Could be doing that again. Cannot wait. ETH 2.0 will not lower fees, correct? Asked Mike Brown. Yes, correct. ETH 2, the merge is just a consensus switchover. So that just means if you have two trains running down a track and the consensus right now is on ETH 1, it's going to cut over the consensus only over to ETH 2. So it doesn't change anything with transaction fees. What the fees are, the fees right now. There's no mechanism to do sharding or any of the layer 2 related content with Ethereum, 2.0 yet. That's the future state. And I think the way they're doing it right now, they have one EIP along with the withdrawal from Beacon feature set kind of next. So even it's not even on the critical path, as it were, right now to reduce fees on Ethereum right now. Essentially, people are moving to Polygon and that to use wrapped ETH as the fee reducer. Shut down Twitter. Use that energy for mining. There you go. There's always a surplus of power produced that's unsold. That's true. So you got different projects that create power production, especially in a renewable, had a real big kick there for a while, where a lot of windmills and solar being built. The thing is with that is if you overproduce the energy, you got kind of organic capture on a renewable side, right? Which would be wind and solar. Meaning, if it's windy and those windmills are on, they're producing power. But if you don't have a consumer for that power, you got to turn them off. And that's why sometimes if you'll drive down the highway and you see some of those windmills on a windy day turned off, it's because you don't have the demand at that rate, right? So unless you have large battery cells, they're not going to shut down that demand, right? I mean, they're not. They got to shut down that demand rather because, or shut down that production because the demand's not there. So, and there's nowhere to store it. So you could get into a situation where a lot of renewables overbuilt and they can spin down, and renewables always tied into some other kind of production, right? So if it's a nuclear power plant, that can dial, you know, how much production is made, at any point in time, so they can spin that down. Clean coal plants, right? They can just keep shoveling in coal and creating steam and spinning a wheel, or they can stop doing that and slow it down, right? So it all comes about how much is being used at its total peak and things being sized appropriately. Um, so if you have a situation where you have all this infrastructure and it's not being used, gas flare, same way. There's an opportunity to create a demand for that then keeps it leveled out where you're using maybe 80% of total capability. And then as a miner, you become interruptible, right? So, which just means you're running 24/7, 365. You're securing a network, and for that security, you're paid in a token. Well, if the power company comes to you and say, "Hey, it's peak season, and during this week, we're going to need you to power down at least a portion of your farm, or we need 5-10 megawatts back for that demand curve that may come up from a residential," you become interruptible, right? That's kind of part and parcel of the way you have to operate, right? It's being a good steward to the space. It's being a good steward to your local constituents and people, residents, because no matter what, the Bitcoin network will continue to thrive and operate even if your singular mine powers down. Um, I've been in debates with people where they're like, no, we can never turn off. Our investors won't let us turn off. And I try to level set with everybody to let them understand that no one mine um, has that kind of right to just say, I can't be interruptible, right? At the end of the day, what we're doing is we're all, everybody that's mining are contributing to a greater security model. And for that model, we'll all share in that those tokens based on our luck against a pool that we're on, or if we're mining for ourselves, if we win a block or not. But we are still in that world, a kind of a secondary to the greater main purpose of the use of that power. Meaning, the first use of that power is for people's heating and cooling and just survival, right? That's going to take the top. So, hospitals, medical services, things that operate society in a health and safety way, right? First one, top tier, no question. I don't think anybody's going to question a hospital getting power before crypto mine, right? So thereby, you're always going to be considered a second class user of that, even though you're a high demand user. So in lieu of that, you just configure your mine to have those downtime periods is when you're going to be doing your maintenance, right? That's when you have somewhere on that Gantt chart that you have things that you have to do when those things are turned off. Service rigs, organize your schedule in that way, and then try to account for that. If you have a situation where you're always down, you probably need to find a different location, or you need to bring in some other power that's a little less interruptible and find a good happy balance. And that's what it comes down to. So I think if you structure your expectations in that way, you help be an advocate of explaining that to your local power companies and constituent regulatory areas, you'll find a good happy median of really a community that's going to embrace the fact that they're going to bring in more tax dollars for services, and then that you're also helping to shore up the power sector in your area to where you're able to grow out more demand, which then gives you a little more opportunity to have extra capacity if something happens in the area where part of one of the main lines go down and you're maybe a power producer on top of it that you can backfeed into the system, and it's more localized. It's like having redundancy at the end of the day. So there's just a lot of misconceptions on this. I mean, like a lot of crypto people that don't mine have this very skewed opinion of the way mining works, and that it's no good and it's not helping a community and there's no pitch for it. And that's just again somebody's opinion that probably hasn't mined and has no idea on the benefits it brings to a particular community when it shores up that integrity of a power network in their particular area. Now, there could be a question of, do we really need that? What's the likelihood? Is it the 1% that you're looking at from a risk standpoint? All of those kind of questions. And I would say that it really depends on where you're looking at. Tell that to Texas when it lost all of its power from an ice storm that was kind of not, nobody was calculating on any of their, charts, right? So again, I think it can be complementary to the space and to answer some of those questions. Slapshot says, "No, it's a new setup. I need to figure out my white balance with this. I mean, I got the high end camera here on my laptop. And I think with me having this big bright light behind me, it's kind of throwing everything off. It's not really dropping the white balance down, but hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. It's blowing out your screen. I tell you what, I'm gonna slide this light down some. Yeah, that's the overhead light. Overhead light's turned down. How about that, my dude? That probably made me a little darker, but we'll let it go that way. POS took a million years. Oh, look at it! Look at it! Look at that! Some white balance just bringing it up. There's not. Maybe I can set in front of it for a second and bring it back down. Like haloed. It's trying to fix it. Let's see if you guys got any more questions and we'll wrap this one up. 317 people. I do appreciate you guys dropping in. Hopefully this wasn't too ranty, unlike just random stuff. I just wanted to make sure that you guys have a good video today. I haven't had a good video with you guys in a couple days. We were up working on our larger build out, which you guys will be seeing here hopefully pretty soon. We have a couple containers that are inbound to our area. A few weeks back, I had shared a Twitter post of a substation that we're setting up at, and it's going to be real good. Now it's too dark. Um, but we're going to take you guys through that. Obviously, the service center has been going good and getting things ready. We're essentially open for business. So we're doing service work here. We're repairing rigs, full setups. We had a couple customers meet up with us, and we're doing some, like just repatching all their hardware and getting it ready. Some of them they're going to sell. So we're repasting, fixing fans, that kind of stuff. That's essentially what this service center does. So and then that's also ASIC support too. So we're working on getting our certification with Bitmain, and then we can start servicing actually hash boards and Beagle boards and all those fun things that happen to do with ASICs and being a service center for that. So you can always drop us a line at bitsbetrippin@gmail.com. We also have bitsbetrippin.io for like enterprise customers and stuff that we'll set up with Samantha. We'll set up a meeting with you guys and stuff for anybody that has equipment and stuff like that. So we wanted to have this kind of maintenance side in-house with our larger build out that we're doing for the BBT farm, really scaling up and getting larger. And we wanted to have the service center with that, along with the studio. And I could have a proper good studio whiteboard and kind of walk through some of these more difficult discussions with you guys when it comes to what's going on in the ecosystem, what's the proof of stake merge really look like, having a couple good collabs with developers to help articulate the kind of technical discussion of like what's happening and the mechanics around that and why you should care, right? Why does it matter? What's it impact if you have a wallet and how you using MetaMask, and how do you switch between the networks, all of that kind of relevant stuff, right? As a user, that you don't get. So with all of the scams and things that can happen, like when you're accessing MetaMask and different websites and that kind of stuff, we want to make sure it's super clear and concise for people, and being able to communicate that information. So this studio will help enable that and give you guys some of the best quality out there. Thanks, Paul. I'm glad that it was good for you guys. Um, do you have a price list on the center? So we are working through that right now. So that's one of the things that BBT Samantha has pushed for me to get more published. Right now, it's been very specific to that. You like somebody would reach out to us and we would see what they have going on, and see if it makes sense for them to do something through the service center, and then we kind of size it based on what they're wanting. Versus just having a la carte kind of like, oh, I need a graphics card fixed. But I'll give you an idea. For basic, like we've replaced fans and heat sink material like that for a standard retail graphics card, usually about $70. So it's you shipping it here, us getting a fan replacement for you, and redoing paste on that and shipping it back is like $70. So on some GPUs it's not worth it, and I wouldn't recommend it. On like if it's a like a 5700, something like that, probably worth it, to have like a fan replaced on it. And it really depends on the fan cost that we can get, but we try to make sure that we're not charging much of a margin at all on fans, and it's just the labor side of it for you guys to keep it kind of relative. And then based on the scale of how much content comes in from that, if we need to scale up or so. We got six physically in this location, six people, so we can get through quite a bit. I mean, we went through probably between in here and out, several hundred GPUs in the last few weeks. So it's a pretty good turnaround. Alfred said, "Brilliant, like has been with you since 2017. Miss the older build shops too." There you go, my dude. We're trying to keep it relatively. I mean, it's you know, larger sites are kind of really what our target is. You know, in an acquisition, working with people, if people are trying to consolidate and move their farms or co-locate, all that kind of stuff, you can always reach out, and we can set up a time with people too, because we've had quite a bit of people looking with you know, increases in power rates and stuff, trying to find places and stuff. We try to match up some good information with you guys, and then really a lot of talking around. You know, we've had Compass Mining as a sponsor for a while, and looking at how folks can you know, best optimized given their situation. If they're selling their mining rigs, their GPU mining rigs, and they're trying to still keep passive income, you know, getting some of maybe the mining at home stuff through like a Compass or you know, an ASIC Jungle, somebody like that, that allows you to have a kind of a locked deal where you own the asset and it's co-hosted like for 6 cents per kilowatt, and then you still are able to get that passive income type of thing. So there's different options out there, or you know, take it in house. I'm personally an in-house type of person. I like to maintain in order to our assets and you know, and manage it ourselves. But you know, everybody's different and everybody's situation is different. Some people are in apartments and don't have the power and that kind of thing. So just trying to make sure that anybody and everybody can participate. That's kind of the point, right? That I always hit home as much as I can of why would people participate in mine, and it's, well, the first step is the fact that you can, and that's liberating, right? You can get lost on the internet, find one of these videos, watch it for you know, maybe a couple hours, do some discovery, download something, a miner on your computer, hook it up to a network, provide some security for that network, and for that you get paid in a token. When you wake up in the morning, you have some tokens; those are worth some money. And if that allows you to use those tokens to invest in the space in some way, get you know, trade them for another token or trade them for dollars or pounds or whatever's good for you. The effort that you did was learn a little bit of a skill and provide security to a network, and for that you're compensated. So it's a very lean way to go about things. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not a get rich quick scheme in any capacity. There's definitely work involved in it, and that hard work does pay off over time. It has paid off over time for many, 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 many people that have stuck with it. Um, but you know, they're not. It's very hard to go 0 to 100 real quick with folks. You have to kind of crawl, walk, run your way into it. Do you repair the S9 hash boards? Soon, Peter. We're gonna get our go through the certification processes with Bitmain and try to get into the with, as part of that, then would get us access to parts. And once we have that, I would then be able to probably take care of that S9 for you. So right now we're not accepting those because we can't get the parts. Part of that is getting onto that certified list to where we can get the components and the hash boards, and then be able to fix them for people. Watched the Feathercoin builds a long time ago. Oh, Feathercoin. The majority of my Feathercoin was lost on Cryptsy. That's one of my one of the Big Vern, man. Big Vern taking Cryptsy and all of our coins. Almost all my Feathercoin and Litecoin went away with that. And I stopped keeping things on exchanges. All right, my dudes. Well, it's wrapping up at 48. We've had a pretty good participation tonight. I do thank you guys for jumping in and you know, hearing us out on this. We'll get an annotated outline there. Again, I'm going to be gone most of next week, but I'm going to try to get a couple videos out just because I can't go that long without having that communication with you guys. If you guys are not following me on Twitter, I usually share quite a bit of information on Twitter, kind of where things are going, and what's coming up next and all that kind of stuff. We'll try to have at least one more of these videos related to this particular topic, ETH merge. We'll do a whiteboard session of that, and then yeah, we'll catch you guys. There's a whole bunch. We got the L7 Bitmain miner. We're gonna let that run over the week and see the kind of return on that. We got the immersion tank here. with the fog hashing that we're going to be doing a sample test with that unit, and an S19J Pro, where we're going to try to do a power supply mod to that. We're going to see if we can get, close to 170 terahash out of a 104 terahash unit. So that'll be running also. So yeah, well, let's get into this, my dudes. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button where you're notified whenever that